It's a decision you have to live with for the rest of your life.
The story begins in Philadelphia, with Clyde Shelton spending a quiet evening at home. He's in his workshop, tinkering with some gadgets, while his young daughter, who is by his side, tries to keep herself busy by piecing together some beads to make a necklace for Mom, who is busy preparing dinner. A knock is heard on the door, and Clyde tells the little girl to go and wash up for dinner, while he heads on to see who the unexpected guest could be. Suddenly, two intruders break in, brutally attacking him. They tie him up
You can't fight fate.
and stab him. His wife rushes out to try to help, but ends up getting stabbed as well. Like that's not enough torture. He is also forced to watch helplessly as one of the men does unspeakable things to his daughter, who had also rushed downstairs due to the commotion. He loses them both that night. A few days later, at a law firm, an attorney named Bingham tries to talk down a female colleague named Sarah, but she gets saved by Nick Rice, the assistant district attorney.
Let's just say I'm less impressed with his Harvard degree than he is.
Nick is shortly summoned by a superior. The killers involved in the Philadelphia homicide have been caught and charged, and Nick has been designated to handle the case.
Let's make the deal.
However, instead of pursuing full justice, he cuts a deal. Darby, the more violent criminal who did all the stabbing, gets a lighter sentence in exchange for testifying against Ames, his accomplice, who gets the death penalty.
They killed a little girl.
The superior tries to persuade him out of that kind of settlement, but he seems adamant because he believes if they take the case otherwise, they could lose it, and then the criminals would be left to roam free without charge.
You would waste a whole year, spend millions of dollars.
He is made to tell Clyde about the deal he just signed with Darby, and Clyde is devastated. Justice has been traded for efficiency, and he feels utterly betrayed by the system.
A trial date is imminent.
Later on in the courtroom, Darby officially signs the deal for Ames's trial, unimpeded by continuances. Nick feels really guilty for not giving Darby the justice he deserves.
Yes, that's a short memory.
He walks out of the courtroom with his superior, who tries to cheer him up, but he holds his head high when he notices the horde of reporters at the exit, waiting to bombard him with questions. He approaches them calmly and explains the sentence to them, telling them justice will be served. He gets back home and is warmly welcomed and comforted by his pregnant wife.
I see my phone.
10 years later, it's his daughter's recital. His wife, Kelly, tries to convince him to show up for it, but he's got work, as always. Perhaps he could have squeezed out time to come watch little Denise's recital on any other day, but something big was going on at work.
You know she's 10 years old, right?
It's the day scheduled for Ames's execution by lethal injection. He tells his dear wife to make sure she tapes the whole thing so they can sit down together to watch it as a family when he's back from work. On getting to work, Nick and some other officials gather to watch as Ames has been strapped to a table with syringes leading straight to his veins.
God, I didn't kill those people.
When he gets asked to say his last words, he confesses that he is indeed guilty for being present at the scene that night, but he goes on to swear that he didn't kill those people and that they're executing the wrong person. The order is given, and the fluids get passed into his system, but in a shock of events, what should have been a quick, painless death turns into something dreadful as Ames writhes in excruciating pain, screaming as the fluids tear through his blood vessels. The execution has been tampered with. Afterwards, they find some words roughly inscribed on the injection bottles, which happen to be the same words
Did the same thing to me in the courtroom, prick.
Ames's accomplice, Darby, is fond of saying before he does something utterly wild. They set out to capture him.
Has turned into something out of a horror film.
Meanwhile, Darby receives a sudden phone call from an anonymous voice, one that instantly unsettles him. The caller warns him in a cold that the police are only moments away from surrounding his location. Skeptical at first, Darby hurries to the window, peeking out through the blinds, and sure enough, flashing lights and approaching figures confirm the warning. His pulse quickens. Whoever this mysterious caller is, they have inside knowledge. The voice on the line instructs Darby to remain calm and to follow a very specific set of directions if he wants to stay a step ahead of the authorities. With no other option, Darby obeys, realizing that this stranger might be his only chance at survival. The instructions lead him toward an abandoned industrial factory on the outskirts of town. There, the caller assures him he will find a police car that can serve as the perfect cover for a clean getaway. Desperate, Darby hurries through the dim, crumbling corridors of the factory until he spots the car parked in the shadows. Relieved, he runs towards the car, but notices an officer slumped over the steering wheel as though recovering from a recent struggle. The man's body twitches as if he has just been hit with a taser. Darby wastes no time as he yanks open the door, snatches a gun from the officer's holster,
Let's go!
and points it directly at him. He orders the cop to drive. The car speeds away from the scene, and for a fleeting moment, Darby feels victorious. But when they are far enough from danger, they get out of the car, and Darby points the gun to eliminate the cop, only to discover the gun is empty. Confusion flashes across his face, followed quickly by panic. Suddenly, his limbs feel heavy, his fingers sluggish. A strange numbness creeps through his body, spreading faster with every second.
You know why I'll never see my wife?
The officer calmly pulls a Lady Gaga as he takes off his wig to reveal an entirely different person, but surprisingly, not a stranger. Darby is shocked to be standing face to face with Clyde.
Sure you do.
The very man whose wife and daughter he had brutally murdered years ago. With chilling composure, Clyde explains the truth that the gun's handle had been carefully coated with tetrodotoxin, a powerful poison that doesn't kill, but instead paralyzes the body of its victim while leaving the nervous system fully active.
In other words, Darby would soon be unable to move, but he would feel everything, every ounce of pain, every cut, every second of his slow undoing. Clyde transports the immobilized Darby to an abandoned building, a desolate place that mirrors the cold justice he is about to deliver. He injects him with adrenaline to ensure he stays awake and aware, then straps him tightly to a metal table. What follows is Clyde's twisted form of retribution.
Now this is for your penis.
A deliberate, merciless dismantling of the man who destroyed his life. Piece by piece, limb by limb, Clyde dismembers him, careful to prolong the agony, ensuring he experiences every wave of excruciating pain without the ability to fight back or even scream properly.
Okay, these are all the case files.
By the next morning, back at the law firm, Nick is visibly unsettled. He voices a growing suspicion that perhaps they have been pursuing the wrong angle regarding the sabotage of Ames's execution. He points out a crucial detail that all of Darby's known crimes throughout his history share the same brutal hallmark, which is violence, recklessness, and bloodshed. Yet the recent sabotage had been precise, calculated, and intellectual, something far beyond Darby's usual methods. Their doubts are confirmed when a call comes in with shocking news about Darby's mutilated body.
Gruesome.
Shedding tears for Darby?
Not quite.
See, reel's turn.
The gruesome discovery validates Nick's theory and immediately shifts suspicion. The investigation quickly circles back to Clyde, whose brilliance and methodical mind now appear to be behind the string of strange events. Acting fast, the authorities trace him to his home. But when they arrive, expecting a fight or a chase, they get warmly welcomed as Clyde does not resist. Instead, he calmly surrenders, almost as if everything is unfolding exactly as he had planned from the very beginning. Clyde gets arrested and taken into custody, where he begins making ridiculous demands in exchange for his confession.
You just have to give me something in return.
First, he insists on having them change the bed in his cell to a more comfortable one. Nick laughs at the audacity and leaves him hanging, but then eventually reconsiders his deal when he receives a call from his wife about a tape that had been sent to their home, showing a masked man deciphering Darby's body. His 10-year-old daughter had seen the tape, and was already traumatized beyond words. He realizes the only way to get Clyde to confess to his crimes would be to play his game, so he agrees to his demands. Clyde gets taken to court, where he demands bail since there doesn't seem to be substantial evidence
One single piece of evidence against me.
about him being responsible for the murder of the two criminals. The judge agrees to his demands,
Thank you.
but he then gets pissed. He mocks her
How
and calls her
misguided
misguided for almost letting him go when he allegedly
killed
murdered two men
couple
just
of
because he
bullshit
fed her a
legal
couple of legal bullshit precedents.
Whatever happened?
This triggers her to deny his bail and send him back to prison, which seems to be according to his plan. Looks like he's not done playing his games.
That's what you're building your defense on, insanity?
As agreed, Clyde eventually gives a partial
told you I'd
confession
give
to
you a
Nick,
confession.
admitting that he was responsible for murdering the criminals who had slipped through the cracks of the justice system. With unexplainable audacity,
The righteous prospering, the wicked suffering.
he requests that a lavish steak dinner be delivered to him in his cell at a very precise time the following day. Nick is at first convinced that Clyde is bluffing, trying to provoke them into playing along with his twisted games. But Clyde wipes away any doubt when he casually mentions Darby's attorney, a man who had mysteriously gone missing 3 days earlier. Clyde tells Nick that if they want to see the attorney alive, they must once again agree to his demands. The next day, the requested meal is prepared and delivered to the prison. However, due to a delay from the prison guards, Clyde's dinner is delayed, arriving at his cell nearly 8 minutes late. Clyde warns Nick that his tardiness will have consequences. He gives him an address, coldly suggesting that if he wants to save the missing attorney, he had better hurry.
Nick.
Nick and a team of officers scramble into a helicopter and rush to the given location. When they arrive, they discover that the attorney has been buried underground, his body strapped with an oxygen mask that had been set to cut off at the very time it should have taken them to arrive. If only they had delivered Clyde's meal exactly on schedule. By the time they dug him up, it was already too late. The oxygen supply has run out. The attorney is dead, just as Clyde calculated. Back at the prison, Clyde calmly eats his meal as if nothing had happened, inviting his cellmate to join in the feast. Tasting the meat, the inmate gets flashbacks from when his mother used to cook for him as a little boy, and gets comfortable. A little too comfortable to notice Clyde pick up a sharpened bone and drive it into his neck, like a Thanksgiving turkey on Grandma's kitchen counter, murdering him in cold blood. Following this, the prison authorities transfer him to a more secure underground facility, more like a dungeon, hoping to limit his reach and influence. Nick pays him a visit, determined to uncover what he wants. Clyde, unshaken and eerily composed, tells him that his mission is not revenge, but accountability. He insists that everyone,
Well, what principle was at work when you tortured him?
including criminals, corrupt officials, and even those who bend the law for convenience, must be held responsible for their actions.
About you killing in their name.
Later that day, Nick meets with his superior, Jonas,
Clyde's government contract payments were bothering me, so I pulled some in.
and together they track down a covert operative known for working on the margins of legality. This spy has a reputation for doing the government's dirty work for money. They hope he might provide a way to stop Clyde. To their dismay, even the hardened operative admits defeat. He tells them bluntly that Clyde is too meticulous, too dangerous, and too far ahead of them. He tells them the only options left are to either submit to Clyde's demands or to kill him before he destroys them. The following day, desperate to reassert control, Nick and Jonas arrange a meeting with the judge in charge of Clyde's case. They present a decree designed to restrict Clyde's privileges and further limit his ability to move or communicate within the prison. The judge listens and agrees, signing off on the order. But just as she hands the documents back to them, her
Well, that's
phone
one of the
rings.
benefits.
She picks it up casually, but in the next instant, the device explodes against her head, killing her instantly, like a mad dog in heat. Nick confronts Clyde face to face. He demands to know what his true intentions are, pushing past the games and theatrics. Clyde remains calm, reiterating that he isn't seeking personal revenge, but simply the kind of justice he believes the system denied him and his family.
The way that best served you, Nick. The way that best served you.
But then he raises the
broken
stakes
thing.
once again. He makes a chilling demand to be released from
Release me.
custody
And drop all charges by 6 a.m.
and to have all charges dropped by 6 a.m. the following day. If not, he warns, more innocent people will die. Nick and his team place Clyde under heavy surveillance, watching his every move throughout the night. Meanwhile, Nick works tirelessly with Sarah and the rest of his colleagues to uncover whether he has an accomplice on the outside. Sarah confesses how afraid she is of what might come next, but Nick tries to steady her nerves, assuring her that everything will be all right, despite his uncertainties. By 6:01 a.m. the following morning, Nick tries to call his bluff. They step out of the office and start getting to their cars to head home. Unfortunately for the people who have gotten into their cars already, the doors get jammed, and the cars explode simultaneously. Nick loses Sarah and a good number of officials that morning. At this point, Nick is terrified.
You better, Nick.
So he sends his wife and daughter on a trip. He visits Clyde in prison, works on heavyweight swings like Ali in his prime, and dislocates his jaw. He threatens him to stop whatever he's doing, but Clyde doesn't seem intimidated one bit. At the high-profile funeral for the lost officials, an explosion goes off, killing even more people this time, including Jonas. The city descends into fear and chaos. Clyde, locked away in his cell, remains eerily calm. Nick has had enough. He tries to resign, but instead,
As of now, you're acting district attorney.
gets promoted to district attorney. The first thing they do is increase the security of the entire city by putting armed cops
The city down. Starting now, no one...
on every corner to convince the people that the city is secure and under control.
API, for Christ's sakes.
Nick gets an email from the undercover spy they met about some items Clyde purchased, which can help them track down his operations. With the help of one of his agents, they narrow it down to a warehouse not too far from the prison and break in. They find an underground tunnel leading not only to the prison, but to different locations in the city. Just like Diddy's, Clyde has been using the secret underground tunnel system that connects to his prison cell to slip out, execute his kills, and return unnoticed. The prison isn't his cage, it's his base of operations. They go down the tunnel and try to ambush him in the prison dungeon, but meet the cell empty. They then predict his whereabouts based on the little information they find in his hideout, and head out to find him in the city hall.
Get ready to evacuate the building.
By the time they get there, he has already evacuated the area, but luckily for them, they meet a bomb he had planted above the room where the mayor and city top officials are holding a Congress meeting. Clyde's final plan comes to light. He intends to bomb the entire city hall. It's not about individuals anymore. It's about wiping out the entire leadership, crippling the justice system he despises.
That's napalm, basically.
Knowing that telling all the congressmen to evacuate would only cause a commotion and force Clyde to push the explode button faster, they have to think of another way to solve the issue. At this point, there's only so little Nick can do, so he swiftly comes up with a shady plan. He gets informed about Clyde's return to his secret base by people he had implanted to spy on the entrance, and they decide to carry out his plan.
I don't care how we do it.
Clyde is allowed to smoothly make it back to his cell without interruptions, but the moment he gets there, he meets Nick in there, waiting for him. Nick appeals to his humanity.
All you're doing is destroying the memory of your daughter.
Reminding him of his daughter and what she would have wanted. But Clyde refuses to stop because his war isn't over yet. Nick tells him it's over as he shows him a gun. Clyde tries to negotiate his way out of it as usual, but it doesn't work this time. Nick tells him straight to his face that he's done making deals with murderers and that this is the end of the line for him.
Finally.
Clyde then reveals the device in his hand containing the trigger to the bomb, but Nick just calmly tells him that he's going to live with the consequences of whatever decision he makes from here on. Adamant, Clyde activated the bomb, and Nick runs out and locks the cell as he sprints for the exit. The passage leading to his secret base is also locked by one of Nick's men. Confused, Clyde looks under his bed and realizes what's going on. Nick had made a bold move and relocated the bomb from City Hall to his cell. In his last moments, he sits quietly on his bed, holding a bracelet his daughter once made for him, reflecting on what he's lost. The bomb detonates, engulfing the entire dungeon in flames. Nick leaves the prison, watching the city skyline in silence. The justice system is still flawed, but the immediate threat is over. Clyde Shelton, once a grieving father turned mastermind, destroyed himself in his quest to expose corruption. Time passes, and it's Denise's recital again, but this time, Nick is there with her mother to watch and provide his fatherly support. The end. Thank you for sticking to the end of my video. Please do me the biggest favor by leaving a like, comment, and subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next video.